Captain Kyle Morrison stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Assembly Hall and felt the weight of 47 alien species staring at him. The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from across the known galaxy. Crystal pillars rose to a ceiling so high it disappeared into artificial clouds. Each species had their own section, arranged in a circle around the central speaking floor, where Kyle now stood. Ambassador Lisa Crawford sat in the human section behind him. She was the senior diplomat, the one with 30 years of experience dealing with the council. Kyle was younger, only 5 years into his role as envoy. He had hoped this meeting would be routine. He had been wrong. High Chancellor Vekinar of the Talkesh Empire rose from his elevated platform. The Talkesh were tall, almost 3 meters high, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. Vekinar was the most powerful being in the council. His empire controlled the largest territory, had the strongest military, and provided the most resources to the galactic government. "We call this session to order," Vekinar said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Today we address a matter of efficiency and resource allocation. The human question." Kyle felt his stomach drop. The human question. That did not sound good. Vekinar continued. "For 30 years, humans have been members of this council. In that time, what have they contributed? They fix our machines. They maintain our stations. They deliver our supplies. These are tasks any species can perform. Yet they occupy a full council seat, entitled to vote on matters of galactic importance." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Kyle glanced back at Lisa. Her face was calm, but he saw the tension in her shoulders. "The Talkesh Empire proposes the following," Vekinar said. "Humanity shall be expelled from the Galactic Council. They may retain their home system of Sol, but they will no longer have access to council space, council resources, or council protection." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species shouted their approval. Others remained silent. Kyle's mind raced. This could not be happening. Humans had worked for 3 decades to build relationships across the galaxy. They had helped negotiate peace treaties. They had repaired critical systems. They had coordinated supply chains that fed billions. Council Prime Zareth called for order. The Zaranek were an ancient species, thin and tall with large eyes and gray skin. They claimed to be neutral mediators, but Kyle knew they usually sided with whoever held the most power. "The human representative may speak," Zareth said. Kyle stepped forward. His throat was dry. "Honored Council," he began. "Humanity has served this body faithfully for 30 years. Yes, we maintain infrastructure and coordinate logistics. But these tasks are vital. Without proper maintenance, stations fail. Without coordination, supply chains collapse. We have prevented countless disasters through our work." "Disasters?" Vekinar laughed. It was a harsh sound. "You repair air filters and schedule cargo deliveries. This is not preventing disasters. This is basic labor. Labor we can assign to machines or lower species." "Lower species?" Kyle felt anger flash through him, but he kept his voice steady. "We also mediate disputes between trading partners. We manage the communication networks that keep all council species connected. We coordinate the medical supply distribution that serves 300 worlds." "Tasks that can be reassigned," Vekinar said dismissively. "The Talkesh have already prepared proposals for replacing human workers with our own personnel. We will handle these duties more efficiently." Lisa stood. She walked to the center floor and stood beside Kyle. "High Chancellor," she said. "I have been part of this council for 30 years. I have seen what happens when maintenance is neglected. I have seen what happens when logistics break down. Humans have institutional knowledge that cannot be easily replaced." "Institutional knowledge?" Another representative spoke up. It was Ambassador Felketh of the Drazon Collective. The Drazon resembled large reptiles with wings. You mean you have made yourselves necessary by creating systems only you understand? This is manipulation, not service. That is not true, Lisa said sharply. We have offered training to any species who wanted to learn. We have documented our procedures. Most species simply were not interested in this type of work, because it is beneath them, Veckener said. These are menial tasks. The Council is meant for advanced civilizations who contribute meaningful knowledge and resources. Humanity contributes neither. You have no unique technology. Your military is weak. Your worlds produce nothing we cannot obtain elsewhere. You are unnecessary. Kyle wanted to argue more. He wanted to list every disaster humans had quietly prevented. Every conflict they had mediated before it escalated. Every system they had saved through careful maintenance. But he could see it was useless. The decision had already been made before this meeting began. We call for a vote, Zareth announced. All in favor of expelling humanity from the Galactic Council. Kyle watched as section after section lit up with approval. The Talkesh, of course. The Drazon Collective. The Meridian Assembly. The Kresh Dominion. On and on. 44 sections showed green lights. Only 3 abstained, all minor species with little power. The vote is decided, Zareth said. Humanity is expelled from the Galactic Council effective immediately. All humans have 90 days to vacate council space and return to their home system. Lisa stepped forward one last time. Her voice was clear and strong. You are making a terrible mistake. We have been the glue holding many of your systems together. When we are gone, you will understand what we truly provided. I hope you remember this moment when everything starts to fall apart. Veckener waved a dismissive hand. Empty threats from a species with no leverage. You may leave now. The next 90 days passed in a blur. Kyle helped coordinate the evacuation of 40,000 human workers from across council space. They came from orbital stations, planetary facilities, communications hubs, and distribution centers. Some had lived in council space for decades. Many had alien friends who protested the expulsion, but were powerless to stop it. Lisa spent her final weeks trying to transfer knowledge to the aliens who would replace human workers. Most were not interested. They believed the work was simple. They did not listen when she explained the small details that mattered. The timing of maintenance cycles, the quirks of specific systems, the relationships between different facilities that made the whole network function. On the final day, Kyle stood on the bridge of a transport ship and watched council space shrink in the viewport. Around him were the last group of humans, leaving the galactic civilization they had served for 3 decades. Lisa stood beside him. She looked tired. They will learn, she said quietly. They will learn what we did for them. But by then, it might be too late. Kyle nodded. He thought about the thousands of systems humans had maintained, the coordination networks they had built, the relationships they had fostered. All of it would be gone now. The galaxy would find out soon enough what happened when the humans left. 6 months had passed since the last human ship left council space. Daniel Hayes stood in front of a massive atmospheric processor and tried not to panic. The machine was responsible for recycling air for 15,000 people on Trading Station Gamma. Right now, it was not working. Daniel was Talkesh, trained as an engineer by his empire's finest academies. He had advanced degrees in mechanical systems and energy distribution. He had worked on military ships and orbital platforms. But this simple human machine defeated him. Status report. Station Commander Felthar demanded through the communication link. Still trying to identify the problem, sir, Daniel said. He looked at his datapad again. The diagnostic readouts made no sense. According to the system, everything should be working perfectly. But the air in the western habitat sections was getting stale. Carbon dioxide levels were rising. The humans maintained this system for 20 years without a single failure, Felthar said. You have had it for 6 months and it breaks. Explain. Daniel wanted to say that maybe the humans had been better at their jobs than anyone realized. But he kept that thought to himself. I am reviewing their maintenance logs now, sir. He pulled up the human records. They were extensive. The previous human engineer, a woman named Amy Walsh, had logged every single maintenance check for the past 5 years. But the logs were strange. They referenced system components by nicknames rather than official designations. They included notes about timing that seemed random. Best to run the blue cycle after the third pump warm-up, one note said. What did that mean? What was the blue cycle? Daniel tried following the official manual instead. The processor had been built by the Kresh Dominion, a species known for excellent engineering. The manual was clear and detailed. It showed exactly how to disassemble, inspect, and repair each component. Daniel had followed those instructions precisely during the last maintenance check 3 weeks ago. Yet now the system was failing. He called his supervisor. I need to bring in a specialist from the Kresh Dominion, he said. This processor needs someone who understands the original design. Do you know how much that will cost? Felthar asked. Kresh engineers charge triple rates now. Ever since the humans left, every species with technical knowledge has raised their prices. Then what should I do, sir? There was a long pause. Fix it yourself. That is what we pay you for. That is what the humans did. Daniel closed the communication channel and stared at the machine. The humans did fix it themselves, but how? He pulled up Amy Walsh's training records. She had spent 3 months learning the system when she first arrived at the station. Her notes from that time were detailed. She had asked hundreds of questions. She had run tests. She had made friends with the Kresh engineer who originally installed the processor. The Kresh engineer was long dead now. The processor was 30 years old. The company that built it had been bought by another corporation. The maintenance manual Daniel had was actually the 3rd revision, updated twice since installation. But Amy Walsh's logs went back to the original setup. She had kept notes from that first engineer. She had understood not just how the system was supposed to work, but how it actually worked in practice. Daniel spent the next 6 hours reading through her logs. Slowly he began to understand. The processor had quirks. It ran hot on the secondary coolant line, so Amy had always monitored it closely. The filtration membranes needed replacement every 90 days, not the 120 days the manual suggested. The control computer had a glitch that caused false readings every 6 weeks, which Amy had learned to recognize and ignore. All of this was documented in her logs. But Daniel had never read them before. He had assumed the official manual was enough. He finally found the current problem. A valve that should have been replaced last month. Amy had marked it in her schedule. But Daniel had followed the official maintenance timeline, which said the valve was good for another 3 months. He replaced the valve. The processor hummed back to life. Air circulation resumed. Daniel reported success to Felthar. The commander was pleased. But Daniel felt uneasy. This station had hundreds of systems. How many of them had human-specific maintenance requirements that were not in the official manuals? Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel learned the answer. Too many. The water purification system started producing cloudy water. The gravity regulators in the South Docking Bay began fluctuating. The power distribution network experienced brownouts in the commercial sector. Each time, Daniel found the same thing. The official manuals said everything should work. The human log showed the real story. systems that needed special attention, components that wore out faster than expected, workarounds for design flaws that had never been officially documented. Amy Walsh had known all of this. She had maintained everything perfectly for years, but she had never pushed her knowledge onto the Talkesh workers. Daniel remembered seeing her in the engineering base sometimes, trying to explain things to new arrivals. Most of them had ignored her. Why would they listen to a human about their own empire's technology? Now Daniel understood. She had not been teaching them about Talkesh technology. She had been teaching them about the real lived experience of keeping old systems running. That was different from theoretical knowledge. Reports started coming in from other stations. Similar problems. Equipment failures. Systems breaking down. The pattern was the same everywhere. Things the humans had maintained were falling apart. The council hired expensive specialists to replace human workers. But specialists were not the same as experienced maintenance crews. A specialist could fix a specific problem. A human maintenance worker had understood how everything connected together. They had seen patterns. They had prevented problems before they started. Trade routes began experiencing delays. Ships arrived late because the automated scheduling system that humans had managed was not adapting to real conditions. Pirates became bolder. They noticed that patrol coordination was less effective without the human logistics officers who had tracked fleet movements. Commander Felthar called a meeting of all station department heads. Daniel attended along with 24 other supervisors. "The council demands answers," Felthar said. "Why are we experiencing so many system failures? Why are operating costs up 40%? Why are supply deliveries delayed?" No one wanted to be the first to say it. Finally, a Drazan supply officer spoke up. "The humans. We underestimated what they were doing." "Nonsense," Felthar snapped. "They performed basic maintenance. We can do the same, can we?" The supply officer asked. "Because I have lost track of 3 cargo shipments this month. The humans used to coordinate all deliveries across 5 sectors. They knew which ships were reliable, which routes were efficient, which traders were honest. All of that knowledge left with them." Daniel added his own observation. "The maintenance logs show years of institutional knowledge. Solutions to problems that are not in any manual. We need to either learn these systems the way the humans did, or replace everything with new equipment." "Replacement would cost billions," Felthar said. "The council will never approve that budget." "Then we need to adapt," Daniel said. "We need to actually learn from what the humans left behind." But it was too late for prevention. That night, Station Gamma lost life support to the residential section for 3 hours. Emergency systems kept everyone alive, but it was terrifying. People demanded answers. Daniel worked through the night to restore the system. When he finally succeeded, he pulled up one of Amy Walsh's old logs. She had predicted this exact failure 2 years ago. She had requested a replacement part. The request had been denied as unnecessary. She had monitored the system carefully ever since, compensating for the weakening component. Daniel had not known to do that. And now 15,000 people had breathed emergency air for 3 hours because of it. Minister Carl Bennett watched the news feeds from his office in New Geneva, Earth. 1 year had passed since humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Council. The reports coming from Council space were getting worse every day. The latest headline made him shake his head. Galactic economy in freefall as trade networks collapse. The article describes supply shortages across 12 sectors. Food distribution systems failing. Medical supplies not reaching out of colonies. Manufacturing centers running at half capacity because raw materials were not arriving on schedule. Carl had tried to warn them. Lisa Crawford had tried to warn them. Every human diplomat had said the same thing before leaving. But the council had not listened. His assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, you have a visitor. He insists on meeting privately." "Who is it?" "He will not give his name. He says you will want to hear what he has to say." Carl considered refusing, but something in his assistant's tone made him curious. "Show him in." The visitor was Talkesh. He wore plain clothes with no official markings. His shimmer skin was dull, a sign of stress or illness. He looked around nervously before sitting down. "Thank you for seeing me, Minister Bennett," the visitor said. "My name is Corval. I am an ambassador for the Talkesh Empire. Or, I was. I am here without official authorization." "Why are you here, Ambassador Corval?" "To beg for help." Corval's voice was quiet. "The council is collapsing. Systems are failing across our entire territory. We need the humans to come back." Carl leaned back in his chair. "The council expelled us. They said we contributed nothing of value. They said any species could do our work. They were wrong." Corval pulled out a datapad. "May I show you something?" Carl nodded. Corval activated a holographic display. It showed the Galactic Council territory mapped in 3 dimensions. Red markers spread across the map like a disease. Each red marker is a major system failure, Corval explained. Station life support systems, planetary water treatment facilities, power grids, communication networks, all of them maintained by humans. All of them failing now. The red markers were everywhere. Carl counted over 200 just in the section of the map he could see. 3 species have already left the council, Corval continued. The Vareth, the Sholan, and the Mektar. They said they cannot survive in a system that is falling apart. 4 more are considering departure. If this continues, the council will fragment completely. And High Chancellor Vecana? What does he say about this? Corval's expression darkened. He blames everyone except himself. He says the other species are incompetent. He says his own engineers are lazy. He has fired 3 different maintenance directors in the past 4 months. But the problems keep getting worse. Carl felt no satisfaction from this news. Yes, the council had wronged humanity. But he did not enjoy watching billions of innocent people suffer because of their leader's arrogance. "What exactly do you want from me?" "Convince your government to send help. We will pay any price. We will meet any conditions. We just need human workers to restore the systems before everything collapses completely." "I will present your request to our leadership," Carl said. "But you should know that many humans do not want to help the council. Not after how we were treated." "I understand," Corval said quietly. "We deserve your anger. But please consider the innocent people who will die if our systems fail completely. The children in orbital habitats, the sick in hospitals, the families on colony worlds. They did not vote to expel humanity." After Corval left, Carl sent a report to Admiral Helen Drake. She commanded the Human Defense Fleet and served on the Civilian Oversight Committee. Within an hour, she called him back. "Is this legitimate?" she asked. "Or some kind of trick?" "I think it is real," Carl said. "The public reports match what he told me. The council is in serious trouble." "Good," Helen said flatly. "Let them fix their own problems." "Admiral, innocent people are suffering. Innocent people suffered when humans were expelled too. We lost jobs. Families were separated. Some people had lived in council space for their entire adult lives. They had to abandon everything and start over." Carl knew she was right. The expulsion had been cruel and unjust. But he also knew what kind of person Helen Drake was beneath her hard exterior. She was a protector. She cared about people, even when they did not deserve it. "There are children in danger," Carl said quietly. The reports mention a research station with failing life support. 200 families. 400 children. Helen was silent for a long moment. Damn it. Send me the station coordinates. You were going to help? I am going to think about it. No promises. The situation continued to deteriorate. Disease outbreaks occurred on multiple worlds because the medical supply chain had broken down. Humans had managed the distribution network for pharmaceuticals, vaccines, and emergency supplies. Without them, shipping companies used inefficient routes. Supplies expired before reaching their destinations. Hospitals ran short of critical medicines. Pirates carved out territory in former council space. Human logistics officers had coordinated patrol schedules for the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. They had analyzed attack patterns and predicted where pirates would strike next. Without that coordination, the peacekeeping ships responded slowly. Pirates grew bold. Some began attacking major trade routes. The galactic economy crashed. Trade between species had always been complicated. Different currencies, different regulations, different standards for contracts and shipping. Humans had worked as neutral mediators who understood all the different systems. They had facilitated deals. They had resolved disputes. They had kept goods and money flowing smoothly. Now, trading partners argued over terms. Deals fell apart over miscommunication. Currency exchange rates fluctuated wildly. Many companies simply stopped doing business across species lines. It was too complicated and risky. Carl received updates daily. Each one was worse than the last. But the worst news came 3 weeks after Corval's visit. "Minister, we have an emergency transmission from Council Space," his assistant said. "A scientific research station is requesting immediate evacuation. Their life support is failing, and they have only hours remaining." Carl pulled up the details. Station Alpha 7, population of 4,000. Half of them were children. The station studied long-term effects of zero gravity on child development. It was important research. It was also a death trap if life support failed. He called Helen Drake immediately. "Admiral, I am sending you coordinates. Children are going to die in the next 12 hours if someone does not help them. Carl, we are not part of the council anymore. This is not our responsibility. I know that. But it is the right thing to do." Another long silence. Then Helen swore quietly. "How many ships will I need?" "The station holds 4,000 people. At least 3 transport vessels. I will send 5. Drake out. 8 hours later, human ships arrived at Station Alpha 7. They evacuated everyone just as the life support systems failed completely. Commander Jake Phillips, who led the rescue mission, allowed the Council news networks to record the operation. The galaxy watched as human ships saved 4,000 alien lives. The response was immediate. Some praised humanity's compassion. Others demanded that humans be allowed to return to Council space. High Chancellor Vecina remained silent for 2 days. Then he made a public broadcast. Carl watched it with Helen, Drake, and the rest of the human leadership. Vecina appeared on screen. He looked older than Carl remembered. His shimmer skin was dull. His posture was slumped. "The Talkesh Empire acknowledges that the expulsion of humanity was an error," he said. "We failed to understand the full scope of their contributions to galactic society. We failed to appreciate the complexity of the work they performed. We failed to recognize their value until it was too late." He paused. Carl could see the words were difficult for him. "I formally apologize to humanity on behalf of the Galactic Council. And I ask, humbly, for humans to return to Council space. We need your help. We need your knowledge. We need your skills. I ask you to forgive our arrogance and give us a chance to make this right." The transmission ended. The room was quiet. President Susan Carter spoke first. "Well, that was unexpected. Should we trust him?" Someone asked. "That is the question," Susan said. She looked at Carl. You have been monitoring this situation. What do you think? I think they are desperate, Carl said. I think they finally understand what they lost. But I also think some of them will resent us for making them beg. So what do we do? Carl thought about the children his people had saved. He thought about the billions suffering because of poor leadership. He thought about humanity's future. We negotiate. But we negotiate from a position of strength. We make them agree to real changes. Equal representation. Fair treatment. Guaranteed protections. If we go back as equals. Not as workers who can be dismissed whenever it is convenient. 18 months after the expulsion, President Susan Carter stood before the Human Assembly and faced the hardest decision of her career. The chamber was filled with representatives from every major human settlement. Earth, Mars, the Europa colonies, the orbital stations, even the distant research outposts beyond Pluto. All of them wanted answers. The Council is begging us to return, Susan said. High Chancellor Vecna has made 3 formal requests in the past month. Each one offers better terms than the last. Full Council membership. Equal voting rights. Veto power over decisions affecting human interests. A seat on the Executive Committee. And we should trust these promises? Senator Lin Zhao stood up from the Mars delegation. She was one of the strongest voices against helping the Council. They expelled us 18 months ago. They said we were worthless. Now they want us back because everything is falling apart. The moment we fix their problems, they will forget these promises. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Susan understood the anger. She felt it too. But she also knew the situation was more complicated than simple revenge. I understand your concerns, Susan said. But we need to consider the humanitarian crisis. The latest reports show famine spreading through 14 sectors. Agricultural distribution has collapsed. People are starving. That is not our fault, Lin said. We warned them this would happen. They chose not to listen. Another representative stood. What about our people who lost everything? Families separated. Careers destroyed. Some humans have not seen their children in 18 months because they were on opposite sides of Council space during the expulsion. Where was the Council's compassion then? Susan had no good answer for that. The expulsion had been brutal. Families had been torn apart. People had lost homes they had built over decades. Some had alien spouses or children who were forced to choose between staying with their human family or remaining in Council space. It had been cruel and unnecessary, but now children were dying. Not the children of Council leaders. Not the children of the politicians who had voted for expulsion. Innocent children who had nothing to do with any of it. Before Susan could respond, an urgent message came through. Her assistant hurried to her side and whispered in her ear. Susan's face went pale. We have an emergency, she announced. A children's colony in the outer reaches has lost all power. Life support is running on backup generators. They have 12 hours before those generators fail. The colony population is 4,000. 90% of them are children under the age of 10. The chamber erupted. Some demanded immediate action. Others insisted it was not humanity's responsibility. The debate grew heated. Susan tried to call for order, but no one was listening. Then a voice cut through the noise. I am going. Commander Jake Phillips stood in the back of the chamber. He was the one who had led the rescue mission to Station Alpha 7 3 weeks ago. I am taking my ship and anyone who wants to volunteer. We can reach that colony in 8 hours if we push the engines hard. Those children should not die because adults made bad decisions. Commander Phillips, Lin Zhao said sharply, you do not have authorization for that mission. This assembly has not voted on intervention. Then I will go without authorization, Jake said. Court-martial me later if you want. But I will not sit here and debate while children suffocate. 50 people stood up. Then 100. Then 200. All volunteers. Engineers, medics, pilots, technicians. Within minutes, Jake had enough crew to staff 3 rescue ships. Susan made her decision. Commander Phillips, you have my authorization. Take whatever ships and supplies you need. Save those children. 6 hours later, Jake's ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the children's colony. The colony was small, built into an asteroid for protection from radiation. It was supposed to be a safe place for families with young children to live while their parents worked on nearby research stations. Now, it was a tomb waiting to happen. Jake opened communication with the colony. This is Commander Jake Phillips of the Human Rescue Fleet. We are here to evacuate your population. How much time do we have? The response came quickly. Commander, this is Director Velmoth. Our generators are failing faster than projected. We have maybe 4 hours. But our transporters are damaged. We cannot beam people directly to your ships. Then, we will dock manually and evacuate on foot, Jake said. Start gathering everyone near the main airlocks. Prioritize the youngest children and anyone with medical needs. The next 4 hours were the most intense of Jake's life. The asteroid colony had limited docking ports. His ships could only connect one at a time. They had to evacuate 4,000 people through 3 small airlocks. Children were crying. Parents were terrified. The air was getting thin as the life support system struggled. Jake's crew worked without stopping. They carried children who were too young to walk. They helped elderly residents who moved slowly. They organized the evacuation with military precision. Every person counted. Every second mattered. The news networks picked up the story. Cameras from a dozen species watched as human ships made trip after trip, loading refugees and rushing them to safety. The last evacuation run happened with only 20 minutes to spare. The generators failed 15 minutes after the final human ship, UNDOCK-ED. 4,000 lives saved. Not a single casualty. The response across the galaxy was immediate. The footage showed human volunteers working themselves to exhaustion to save alien children. It showed parents thanking human medics with tears in their eyes. It showed Jake Phillips carrying a tiny alien child in his arms, the child's small hand gripping his uniform collar. The broadcast reached every corner of Council space. Social media exploded with commentary. Some species called for humanity's immediate return. Others organized protests demanding their governments apologize. A few hardliners still insisted humans were manipulating the situation for political gain, but most people simply saw what the footage showed. Humans helping those in need. No conditions. No demands. Just people doing the right thing. High Chancellor Vecner watched the broadcast from his office. He was alone. His political support had collapsed over the past months. 3 assassination attempts in the last 2 weeks. His own party was calling for his resignation. The empire he had ruled for 20 years was falling apart. He had made the greatest mistake of his career. He had believed the humans were insignificant. He had thought they performed simple tasks that anyone could do. He had convinced the council to expel them. And now everything was broken. The medical supply chain had collapsed. Disease was spreading. The agricultural distribution network was in chaos. Famine threatened multiple worlds. Pirates controlled significant territory. The economy was in free fall. 3 species had left the council entirely. 7 more were on the verge of leaving, all because he had not understood what the humans actually did. Vikener recorded a message. Not a political speech. Not a formal apology. Just an honest admission of failure. He sent it to every major news network in the galaxy. My name is Vikaner. I am the High Chancellor of the Talkesh Empire. I am the one who proposed expelling humanity from the Galactic Council. I convinced my fellow leaders that humans were unnecessary. I was wrong." He paused. This was difficult, but it needed to be said. Humans maintained the infrastructure that kept our civilization running. They coordinated the systems that made galactic society possible. They worked jobs we considered beneath us, never complaining, never demanding recognition. And when we threw them away, we destroyed ourselves. His voice grew stronger. I am broadcasting this message to humanity, to President Susan Carter and the human government, to every human who was forced from their home because of my arrogance. I am sorry. The Galactic Council is sorry. We were wrong to expel you. We were wrong to dismiss your contributions. We were wrong to believe we could replace you. They looked directly into the camera. We need you. Not just for your skills. Not just for your knowledge. We need you because you are better than us. You just proved it. You saved 4,000 children who meant nothing to you politically. You asked for nothing in return. You did it because it was right. That is the kind of people you are. That is the kind of people we need in our council. He took a breath. I am asking humanity to return. I am offering you equal status, equal votes, equal power, a say in every decision, protection under council law with the same rights as any founding species. I am offering this not from a position of power, but from humility. We need you, and if you choose to help us, we will spend the rest of our existence proving we deserve that help. The message ended. Back on Earth, Susan Carter watched it with her advisors. The room was quiet for a long moment. Well, someone finally said, "That was unexpected. Do we trust it?" Another asked. Susan thought about Jake Phillips carrying that child. She thought about the volunteers who risked their lives to save strangers. She thought about what humanity should be. "We negotiate," she said. "We get everything in writing. We bring lawyers, diplomats, and observers. We make sure this time it sticks. And if they betray us again, we leave and never come back. And if they agree to our terms," Susan smiled slightly, "then we show them what humanity is really capable of." 2 years after the expulsion, Captain Kyle Morrison walked back into the Galactic Assembly Hall. The last time he had stood here, he had watched humanity being voted out of the council. Now he was returning as the chief human negotiator. But things would be different this time. Ambassador Lisa Crawford walked beside him. She had aged in the past 2 years. The stress of the expulsion and its aftermath showed in the lines around her eyes. But her back was straight and her gaze was steady. She had earned this moment. The assembly hall looked different now. Several sections sat empty where species had left the council. The grand chamber that once held 47 civilizations now held only 38. The crystal pillars were dim. The artificial clouds above seemed darker. Everything felt smaller and sadder. High Chancellor Vekaner was not there. He had been removed from power 6 weeks ago. His own party had forced him out after the 3rd assassination attempt. Now he worked as a maintenance supervisor on a small orbital station. It was a humiliating fall, but he had accepted it without protest. Council Prime Zareth called the session to order. The ancient Zonik looked older too. Defeat had touched everyone in council space. "We welcome the human delegation," Zareth said. "We are prepared to discuss the terms of humanity's return to the Galactic Council." Kyle stepped forward. He carried a datapad with the human government's demands. They had spent 3 months negotiating these terms. Every word had been debated and approved. There would be no compromises. "Thank you, Council Prime," Kyle said. "Before we discuss terms, I want to show you something." He activated the datapad. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a map of council space from 2 years ago, before the expulsion. Green markers indicated functioning systems. There were thousands of them. This is what council space looked like when humans were part of your civilization, Kyle said. Every green marker represents a system that was operating correctly. Life support, power distribution, water treatment, communications, medical supplies, trade routes. All of it working. He changed the display. The map now showed current council space. Red markers covered everything like a spreading infection. This is council space now. Each red marker is a system that has failed or is failing. Over 6,000 critical systems. Infrastructure collapse affecting 400 billion people. Economic damage in the trillions. 20 species on the verge of leaving the council completely. Kyle let them look at the comparison. He wanted them to understand fully. We did not cause this collapse, he continued, but we prevented it for 30 years. Every day, human workers maintained these systems. We coordinated logistics across hundreds of worlds. We mediated disputes between trading partners. We managed communication networks. We distributed medical supplies. We scheduled cargo deliveries. We tracked pirate movements. We ran the systems that make galactic civilization possible. He paused. And you expelled us for it. You said we contributed nothing of value. You said our work was simple and could be done by anyone. You were wrong. The chamber was silent. Some representatives looked ashamed. Others looked angry. But none of them argued. Lisa stepped forward. Let me tell you what we found in the human logs, she said. When we were preparing to leave council space, we gathered every maintenance record, every procedural document, every piece of institutional knowledge we had accumulated over 30 years. Do you know what we discovered? She activated her own display. It showed a complex network diagram. Human workers had prevented 73 major disasters in the past decade alone. Station decompression, plague outbreaks, power grid failures, water contamination, cargo ship collisions. Every one of these disasters would have killed thousands or millions of people. You never knew about them because we stopped them before they happened. The display changed again. It showed a list of names. Hundreds of them. These are the human workers who died in council space over the past 30 years. Most of them died preventing those disasters. They fixed reactor leaks that were melting down. They evacuated stations during pirate attacks. They contained disease outbreaks by sealing themselves into quarantine zones. They sacrificed themselves to save alien lives. Lisa's voice hardened. And when you expelled us, not one council species even acknowledged their sacrifice. Not one memorial. Not one thank you. You just told us to leave. Kyle took over again. We are willing to return, but only under the following conditions. He listed them one by one. Full council membership with voting rights equal to founding species. Veto power over any decision affecting human interests. Representation on every council committee. Protection under council law with full legal rights. Fair compensation for all human workers. Formal recognition of human contributions. And most importantly, a signed treaty guaranteeing these terms for at least 100 years. These are not negotiable, Kyle said. Accept all of them, or we do not return. Council Prime Zareth looked at the other representatives. Several wanted to argue. Kyle could see it in their faces. But what choice did they have? The council was collapsing. More species left every month. If humans did not return, the entire galactic civilization might fall apart. We accept your terms, Zareth said quietly. All of them. The formal signing happened 3 days later. Every council species sent their leaders to witness it. The treaty was written in 12 languages and filled 200 pages. Every clause had been carefully reviewed by human lawyers. There would be no loopholes, no ways to dismiss humans again when it became convenient. After the signing, the real work began. Rachel Kim led the first wave of human engineers back to Council space. She was young, only 28, but she had trained under Amy Walsh before the expulsion. She knew the systems better than almost anyone. Rachel's first stop was Trading Station Gamma. Daniel Hayes met her at the docking bay. The Talkesh engineer looked exhausted. He had been struggling to maintain the station for 18 months with minimal support. "Thank you for coming," Daniel said. "I have tried my best, but many systems are failing faster than I can repair them." Rachel smiled. "Show me what you have been working on." They spent the next week going through every system on the station. Daniel had done better than Rachel expected. He had learned to read the human maintenance logs. He had figured out most of Amy Walsh's notes. He had kept people alive and safe, despite impossible conditions. "You did well," Rachel told him. "Better than most could have done with no training." "It was not enough," Daniel said. "I let systems fail that Amy would have prevented." Amy had 30 years of experience. You had 18 months with no support. You should be proud of what you accomplished. Rachel began training a new generation of engineers. But this time was different. This time, the aliens listened. They asked questions. They took notes. They understood that this knowledge was valuable and complex. They treated Rachel and the other human workers with respect. The word spread quickly through Council space. Humans were returning. Systems were being restored. Supply chains were coming back online. Medical distribution resumed. Trade routes reopened. The economy stabilized. Kyle Morrison visited multiple worlds to oversee the transition. On each one, he found the same pattern. Grateful populations. Aliens who finally understood what humans had been doing all along. And occasional encounters with the leaders who had voted for expulsion. One such encounter happened on the capital world of the Talkesh Empire. Kyle was inspecting a water treatment facility when he saw a familiar figure working on a filtration unit. The shimmer skin was distinctive, even in plain workers' clothes. "I, Chancellor Veckener," Kyle said. The former leader looked up. His face showed surprise, then resignation. "Just Veckener now? I am no longer Chancellor of anything. I heard you were working maintenance on an orbital station." "I was. Then I was transferred here." Veckener set down his tools. "I requested the transfer, actually. I wanted to understand what the humans did. What I destroyed when I convinced the Council to expel you." Kyle studied him. Veckener looked smaller somehow, humbled. "And what have you learned?" "That I was a fool." Veckener's voice was quiet. "This work is not simple. It requires knowledge, experience, and attention to detail. It requires caring about the small things that keep people alive. I spent 40 years in politics, thinking that leadership was about grand decisions and military power. I never understood that civilization runs on the work of people like you. People who fix the machines and coordinate the supplies and make sure children have clean water to drink." Kyle felt his anger fading. He had imagined confronting Veckener many times. He had prepared speeches about justice and consequences. But looking at this broken old alien working an entry-level job, he felt only pity. "We could have been partners," Kyle said. "If you had just asked us to stay, we would have helped you improve your systems. We would have trained your people properly. We wanted to contribute. I know that now." Veckener picked up his tools again. "For what it is worth, I am glad you came back. The galaxy needs humans. We always did. We were just too arrogant to see it." Kyle left him there and continued his inspection. But later that day, he sent a message to Rachel Kim. When you are training new engineers, see if someone named Vikaner wants to learn. He's working at the Capital Water Facility. Give him a chance if he asks.